demo is going to go through a couple of new things. This is my example right here, which we're going to be doing trim paths, we're going to be doing dots and dashes, we're going to do some nesting, and then also Venetian blinds, which is a effect in After Effects. So the first thing you want to do here is we're going to go into File, New, and just create a new project and create a new composition. We're going to start working in our main composition. I'm also going to recommend that your background color is just set to pure black. And the reason that I'm saying this is because we don't want to get distracted by a color not really being there. If you just have a background color, it doesn't necessarily doesn't export when you export your project. You need to create a solid. So we're going to put black, and we're going to add real quick. We're going to go up to our layer and new and solid. So this is something new. And I'm just going to suggest that you pick a color for your background. And this will actually be our color background. So this is our main comp. Today we're going to start working directly in our main composition. So I'm going to go ahead and just deselect by clicking in some gray space. Command-Shift-A is also the fast option. I'm going to go up here to my ellipse tool, and I'm going to go ahead and drag out a circle. I'm going to hold down Shift here. Now you can see this particular one has a stroke and no fill. I'm going to go ahead and hold down Option and click on Fill to get my fill turned on. I'm going to turn off my stroke by option clicking until I get that slash out. From here, I'm going to go ahead and just pick a color. All right. And you can see mine is centered in my anchor point is centered in this circle. Remember, you can always go to Layer, Transform, and Center Anchor Point Layer Content. We've already turned on our settings, After Effects Preferences, General, and then we turned on Center Anchor Point in all new shape layers. So I'm just going to go down here and just hit U on my shape layer 1, and I might, just to close everything down, I'm going to hit Return, and I'm going to title this one what it is, or just red circle. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually duplicate this red circle, and we're going to just modify it. So I'm going to go to that red circle, I'm going to Command D, and I'm going to change this one to a slightly different. Let's go do this one white, and I'm going to retitle. Red circle 2 is white circle. And let's do it one more time. Command D, and this one, go something a little bit nice. We'll go teal. So this one will say teal circle. So now I have 3 circles. You know what, I'm going to make one more. We have red, white, teal. I'm going to duplicate my red, and I'm going to turn this one black. So you can see the colors up there. I'm just going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to actually move that black circle to the bottom right under the red circle. So in this, we have our solid, we have our black, red, white, teal. If you ever wanted to change your solid color, you're just going to click on your solid. You're going to go to Layer, Solid Settings, and there you can change your solid color. From here, let's start doing some of this trim path. So first thing we're going to do here is we are going to go in to let's go to the top one, to teal. Kind of work top down, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up, the contents there. So you're going to see this add option, and what add gives you is the ability to add some of these things in. So what we're going to do is trim paths. You're going to see it's going to go contents, and then underneath your ellipse, which is just a representation of that circle, I'm going to twirl down my trim paths. So once you get your trim path open, what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and change the number of the start. So we're going to go this one to 50. Okay, and in theory, we could do this to all of them. I probably could have just done this to one and then duplicated it. That would have been an option, but I wanted to show kind of how you could modify this if you forgot to, or what have you. So I'm going to go now to my white circle. I'm going to do the same thing, add a trim path, see my trim path. I'm going to go now to start, and I'm thinking about in terms of 50% is going to be the difference. So I'm going to actually, for start, I'm going to say 25, and then my end is going to be 75. And so I'm just taking up half there. And let's go ahead to my red circle, and let's go, I have to add one. Trim path, and let's go in, and this one I'll say this one's going to be 10, and then if that's 10, the other one's got to be 60. And so now you can see our whole circle just kind of broken up. So what I've done is the trim path, you're going to see it in a different way in a second. We're going to do a trim path where it's not even like an inner part here. We're going to have just an outline, and so there's a lot of different ways to use this. So let's go ahead now, and actually I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my teal circle. And so this one I could change. I'm going to maybe keep it, I'm going to make it a black, but I'm gonna go ahead and option click out so there's no fill, but I want it to have a stroke, and the stroke color I want it to be, let's say, I'm gonna say black, but you can, you know, pick whatever you want here. So this one, it creates the illusion here that it's a stroke on that teal line, but what really is going on is we're going to call this one stroke animate, and I'm going to go ahead and just scale this up. So I'm going to hit S. I'm going to make this slightly bigger. Okay. The other thing you can do is your stroke up top here. You can see it's at 8. I'm going to slide that up just to make it a little bit thicker. So I'm at maybe like 16. That looks better. Okay, and this is really, when we're working with circles like this, it is really important that you are kind of mindful in terms of the anchor point being centered, because it's going to rotate around that. If it's off, it's going to look weird when it rotates. So let's go ahead and we're going to start going in and we're going to animate rotation now. So we've trim path these, and we could animate in the trim path, but and I am going to do that for the stroke, but I'm not going to do that for the circles. For these, I'm just going to hit R for rotation. I'm actually going to shift select everything except for maybe everything except for my background circle, which is my black one. I'm going to hit R to turn on rotation for all of them, and then I'm going to turn on the stopwatch. So I'm going to say, okay, at the beginning, maybe it's just on screen, and maybe they're going to rotate. Now I'm going to rotate these separately. So I'm going to have this one, the teal one's going to rotate to here, and then I'm going to have it maybe rotate backwards a little bit, and then I'll have it rotate again forward, and then slight backwards. So this is happening over like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, right? So you can do as many as you want. I wouldn't go too crazy because sometimes the speed this doesn't work right. I'm gonna put my play just past this and hit N just to kind of trim up my work area so I can just watch this and see what that's looking like. I think that speed looks okay, and it'll look even better when we have all these going and we have the trim paths or the easy ease on. So I'm gonna go now to my white circle. I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, it started there. Okay, and the reason I kind of like to do this by layers is so I can see what I'm actually able to visibly see as these are rotating. Because I don't want to like cover up all of them or half of them with a wrong rotation. So I'm kind of just changing that up and seeing what looks best at these points. And so I like to go positive spin, then a negative spin, then a slight positive or negative. I think that kind of has a nice aesthetic to it too. So you know, play around a little bit. Same thing, I'm going to go to my red circle, and maybe my red circle, we'll just do some really subtle rotations with it. Move this, oops, grab a work area there. Okay, pull this back. All right, so it's looking pretty good. And let's go ahead and hit play. So all these are kind of working on their own, you know, rotations. And again, we trim path these, so we only saw a portion of a shape. Okay. Next thing we want to do, now we're going to go do our stroke animation. Now in this one, you could do this with the rotation. I'm going to show how to do it in another way, which is under our, we're going to go to our contents. We're going to go to, let's see, we don't have a trim path on this one, do we? Let's see, this one. Oh, we do have trim path. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to turn on start, end, and offset. Oop. Not yet. I'm going to move my play back to 0. I'm going to turn on start, end, and offset. And I'm going to go ahead and move my playhead forward. And I'm going to rotate one of these numbers. So let's go. I'll change my start and then maybe my offset. So start is like, where does the line start? How much of it's drawn? And then the offset is, where is it on that path or that circle. So you could do this with any shape. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of modify this thing, and over time I'll make like a manual keyframe for end at some point here too, and then the next one I'll change it. So I just went to that little, whoops, probably don't want to go backwards though, so let's see how that looks. Okay, so you're gonna see it's getting smaller and then getting bigger, but it's kind of moving around here. All right, I'll do maybe one more change here on offset. Maybe I should go back, create another manual keyframe, just put this little diamond over here and pull my plate forward and do one last offset change. So let's see how this is looking. So not bad. I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe have everything move to the end. You know, you don't want anything stopping, so maybe make just a subtle change somewhere. This one slide down. Okay, so this thing's looking good, and I'm now, like, my job gets a lot easier, and I'm just going to start replicating some things. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go, and you could drag select, you could shift select. I'm going to go up here, get my arrow, and I'm just going to drag select over everything, and I'm going to hit the letter U. That's going to open up all my keyframes. Now, why am I doing this? Because I want to easy ease all this at once, make my life easier. So I'm just going to click in this gray area, drag over all my keyframes, and I'm going to right click on one, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and that should make this look a lot, just a lot more realistic, a little bit more animated. So I think that's looking pretty good. All right. So I'm going to hit U again and close those all up. And now one new thing today is we're going to be doing a replicating, and we're going to pre-comp this. So all these things that we just did, black circle through the stroke animation, I'm going to leave the gray solid in here. I'm going to Command Shift C, and that is a pre-comp. So this one is just going to be, we'll say circles 1. And you're going to see it's going to come up here. And so now circles 1 is inside of my main. Okay. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually go back into circles 1, because one thing I'm thinking about is this is too big. So we didn't keyframe any scale. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag select this. If I did keyframe scale, I wouldn't be able to do this. So I'm just going to shrink everything down. So it's a little bit smaller on here, and that's the reason being is if I pre-comp stuff and it goes off screen, I'll see the screen, so I want this to be a little bit smaller on there to give me more options. And then I can always go back to my main, which I'm in now, and I hit S and I can scale it up here. And you can see that's like my area, so that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to go ahead and just put this, I'm actually going to put this over to the right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just duplicate it. So I'm going to go ahead, duplicate, Command D. And I'm going to reuse this. So I have the same animation going on twice. Now how can we get fancy? All right, I'm going to hit R on this one, and I'm just going to, I'm going to just rotate this. Now it looks like that's maybe not centered on an anchor point. I don't know. Let's see, layer, transform, center point, layer content. Maybe it is. I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, that looks good though. All right, so I was just kind of thinking, I want these to be slightly different, so they're not exactly the same, but look similar, right? I think it's just compared to each other. Maybe I shift select these, go to align. Let's see, can I align these? Okay, so in theory, these are aligned around each other. I'm also going to go ahead and just pull these apart a little bit, so I'll deselect and then just move it over slightly, deselect, move it over slightly. All right. And so here, looking pretty good, and just nice, simple concept. So the next one, I'm going to show you how to reuse this. So we reused it once, but we didn't make any changes. So now I'm going to go up here to circles 1 of a Command D to deselect. So we have circles 2. So I'm going to go into circles 2. Let's make some changes in circles 2. Okay. So number 1 change here is we're going to change colors. So I'm going to go to my teal, and now, you know, you can see here, like my background's black. So if that's a problem, you can go right click, comp settings, and change that comp settings. It doesn't matter, you know. It'll show you. One good idea would probably be what's our main comp background. It's gray. So if I go to circles 2, go to comp settings, and set this as like a light gray, then I know it's going to still work. That light gray will not follow. Okay, so it's not a solid. Solids will follow along with that, but because we don't have a solid. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We do have a solid in here. We're going to delete that probably. No, we don't have a solid. We're good. Okay. So circles 2. All right, circles 2. Here's what we're going to do. We're just going to change colors. So I'm going to go to my teal circle. I'm just going to say, okay, you're going to be a different color now. Now you could retitle these if you want to. You might even just want to switch them so they look slightly different. I'm going to go to, so that one's now yellow. Don't have to retitle them, but could help. White circle. Okay, white circle. Whoops. Let's go change that one. That one will make orange. We'll go to red circle. That one will make white. And then black circle, let's make that one. I don't know. Let's see what's going to look good. All right, we'll go with this weird kind of green. Okay, so I just changed all those colors. Now, It's gonna do the exact same thing. It's just gonna be a different color scheme. So this is a way for you to easily modify stuff. You can see it's kind of trying to render here, but for you to modify things without having to redo all the exact same stuff. The other thing we could do is go to U, and you see all your keyframes. You could change the rate of everything too. So if you just wanted to play around with these, then you're going to get a different animation as well. I mean, we could go in and reanimate, but I think just for now, like even just changing so they're not all doing the exact same thing is kind of cool. You could swap some of these. I mean, be careful, but and then just, you know, get a preview, see how it's looking. Make sure it doesn't look too wacky at some points, because sometimes maybe you change a number and it just looks not right. So I'm gonna hit U again. Let's see, I'm gonna stop this, and I'm gonna hit U just to close down on my keyframes. And now I'm going to go to stroke animation. So this is the one where we're going to do something really different, where we're going to go and do a trim path. I'm sorry, a dot dashes. So I'm going to go and open up my stroke animation. I'm going to go into contents, and you see I have an ellipse one trim path. We're going to go into our ellipse. Ellipse is just a representation of that circle or that line at this point. And we're going to go into what's called our stroke, which is our outline. So you're going to twirl that down. This is kind of a pain, but there's a lot there. And just keep going. You're looking for dashes. So dashes, there isn't any yet. You're going to hit plus. And so right away you're going to see the change, right? So it turns that line into dashes, and you can change what those dashes look like. Are they long? Are they really short? Okay, and that's going to obviously create different visuals. So this one I'll go a little bit shorter. I'll go 12, and I'm going to also turn on my animation for those. And let's see. Oops, I'm not yet. I'm going to pull this back. So what I could do here, I'm going to turn it on at the beginning. And so what I could do here is have this thing animate with the dots and dashes. First off, I've turned them on, but I could also have them over time get longer, right? And so I could also change my offset. Now that's only working in that area that I give it. So what might be a good idea here is to do another new one. So I think we'll do just a new one so you can kind of see it fresh and see what this looks like. So let's go, I think our black circle, which is on the bottom, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to pull that up. And it's teal, not a big deal, okay? But I'm going to go ahead up here, and I'm going to option click off my stroke. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my fill. Or I'm sorry, I'm option click off my fill. I'm going to turn on my stroke. Let's do a different color, something we can actually see. Okay, I'll bump this up a little bit. There we go. And so now I'm gonna use my scale on here, and just maybe make it a little bit bigger. I can put it inside. I can put it way inside. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead down. Let's do that again. I'm going to go into my contents, go into ellipse one, go into stroke one on that one, go down to my dashes and hit plus. And now you can see it. So now let's do like a really maybe a longer one. All right, that looks good. Get something a little bit different. And so now that one's not moving, right? We didn't animate that. So now I'm going to show you how to do a dash and offset animation. So I'm going to turn on the stopwatch for both those at 0. I'm going to say, okay, by the time you get here, let's go a little bit thicker, but then the offset's going to be different, where you're going to rotate around. So I could animate this like just rotation wise too. That definitely works. Drop that down. Let's see what this was like. It's looking okay. Maybe I still want to do some rotational animation on that. I actually think that would look better. So I'm going to go ahead back. I'm going to go to my stopwatch for rotation, turn it on. I'll say, okay, here, let's make it rotate a little bit. Right, so there's all these controls you have for all this stuff. And everything really functions the same. It's just you got to kind of know where it's at. Okay, so this one's looking good, right? Kind of cool. Color scheme, I'm maybe a little bit skeptical of. Not bad. Right, let's change this a little bit too. Okay, so now we made this. This is circles 2. We have circles 1, and we're just reusing it. I'm going to go back to my main now. I'm going to bring in circles 2. And now there's circles 2. Again, you see the background doesn't fall. I'm going to hit ask for scale just to scale this down. I'm not keyframing it. I'm just moving it and rescaling and putting it somewhere else. And then I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'll rotate this before I go too further, just so it's a little bit different already. And then now I'll rotate this one. I'm sorry, duplicate this one. And I'll move this one into a new spot. And I'm going to rotate this one so it's slightly different as well. Make sure that looks right. That's okay. That's better. All right. So now let's go ahead and hit play. There's probably a lot that this thing's gonna be rendering, but okay, and you can see it's the same animation with subtle changes. subtle differences, but we're using them all. So now we have one last thing to do, which is our Venetian blinds. And so Venetian blinds, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our solid, we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to go to that solid, go to layer, layer, solid settings, and we're going to change the color of this solid. So let's go, I'm going to go see what looks good, actually. That look good? I'm going to say, yeah, that looks okay. Let's see what looks better bright. I like it better darker here. So again, you got to think about, you know, what's working for your color scheme. So I'm going to hit OK. Hit new, because what it does is it just creates a new one because that was a copy. And so now we're going to go ahead and do something called Venetian blinds. So this is the first time we've used effects. We're going to go over to our effects and presets, and you're going to type in Venetian, so Venetiin. So what it's doing is kind of replicating the look of blinds on Windows. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this. There's a couple ways I can add this. I can double click it when I'm selected on a layer, or I could drag it onto that layer if I wanted to do it that way. Okay, now you're going to see right away it changes, and what it's doing is it just turned off the Venetian blinds. I'm going to turn off that stopwatch for it too, so there's no animation. I'm going to pull my play back to 0. And so here, up at the top, we're looking in this top left area. This is my effect controls area. So this controls any effects that are going on there. And so I'm going to go and we're going to turn on transition complete, direction, and width at the beginning. So we're saying at the beginning, look like this. Now when I pull my play forward, we're going to change our transition complete. Transition complete is, let's see, we're going to drop it down, is that right there. So you can see it, it kind of turns into these like blind looking things, right? So I'm going to 44%, and then I'm going to pull my play forward again, and I'm going to change something else. Maybe I changed my rotation here. Okay. Maybe I could have, okay, let's go back in here. If I go to my effects, I twirl down that solid, go to my effects, go to my Venetian blinds, you can see all my controls here too. So I can go back and I can make, you know, holding keyframes. So I can be like, okay, you need to stay like that for that time being. Okay, to here, it looks good. Let's make some manual keyframes there. And then here, maybe let's change something else. I'm gonna go to my width and have that get bigger, but then maybe have the direction rotate back. Okay, so let's see how that looks. And all right, kind of looks like a cool, crazy loading screen. And again, I would just animate it to the end so that, you know, we can make this look as good as we possibly can. All right. And maybe at the end it just goes to teal. So we were able to do quite a bit of things here. We did trim paths, we did our dashes, we did Venetian blinds, and we talked about pre-comping. So again, I think that, you know, one thing you want to be careful of is just a heads up. Down here we have all of our compositions open. So right here is our main, here's our circles 1, here's our circles 2. Also up at the top you can see my effect controls might be a distraction, but I can always click back on my project and then I see all my items. So, you know, you can close down your effect controls, and then when you open up something or like you go to edit something, it'll pop up. Or you can always change stuff just down here in your timeline. You know, you can twirl down options and get that. And again, anything that has a keyframe on it, right? So if we tag all this stuff, let's hit U. Okay, we have a lot of stuff that doesn't have an easy ease on it. We can always go back and add that easy ease on later, and just make stuff look a little bit better. So, and that is the demo for today.